is season 3, episode 3, and I'm so excited to be back. Yeah, I'm everybody. Don't worry. I know that I went missing, but I am totally fine. I really apologize for that. That is not like me, and I've never missed anything. And then all of a sudden, we moved, and it's been a lot. So, so I apologize. I'm so glad to be back. Sorry, I missed a month. And August is my birthday month, so that's awesome too. I'm really excited about today's guest. So, and I'm excited about why we are talking about the topics we're going to be talking about. Everybody knows that I'm very passionate about grief and trauma and all that stuff. And that's why I became a life coach. So I specialize in those topics. And today just happens to be National Grief Awareness Day. So that is so awesome. So I'm excited about today's guest, Dr. Barbara Hopkinson. She's the founder of A Butterfly's Journey, which I think is an amazing name, and I'm excited to talk about that. And it's a nonprofit for resilience after loss. And there's a whole bunch of other things, but welcome, Barbara, to the show.
Thank you. Very delighted to be here.
Yay. Thank you so much for coming on. And sorry for the crazy start there. It's been a while. Thank you. I'm so honest and transparent all the time because I feel like that's the way you should be. So it wasn't as smooth as it's been in other times. So hopefully you guys can see this like you're supposed to. It looks like it's live right now, so that's fantastic. But welcome to the show. And I'm really happy to have you on to talk about this topic. And you have a different take on it from most people, probably because of your life experience. And I'm really grateful for you that you turned it into a positive thing and are helping people. And so I'm just going to ask you some questions, and then we'll get to the point where you're talking about how you can help others and how you do help others. So,
Sure.
All right. So
you want me to do a thumbnail background?
No, you can introduce yourself if you want, or you can do that if you want, and then I can ask you questions. That's fine.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So I'm Barbara Hopkinson. I live north of Boston. I do this grief recovery work with 2 nonprofits, a local support group, which is a chapter of the Compassionate Friends, and A Butterfly's Journey. I do this primarily because I've lost 3 children and a husband, and both parents and an infant brother. And so I was compelled and knew that helping other people would help me heal. And I've been doing this work for 20 years. And I got an honorary doctorate in humanitarianism because of it. And I've put out multiple books. But anyway, that's the thumbnail.
That's so amazing. So the honorary doctorate, how does that work, and where did you get it from? Well, like what school was it from?
It was from Global International Alliance in Atlanta. I got it. Yeah, and it was great. We had a 2-stage part of it because we actually did it a couple of Decembers ago, initially in Manhattan in New York City, but then went down to the formal graduation. I actually graduated with CeeLo Green among 200 other people to get a humanitarian document with Dr. Lenora Wembley Peterson at Global International Alliance, which is actually an ambassador, and it's kind of it's connected into the Biden-Harris administration. Wow. So I actually got a certificate of award from them too for service related to that. So it was exciting.
That is so awesome. That is really exciting. Congratulations on that. And since we're talking, we'll talk about your story, but explain. Most people probably know what a humanitarian is, but just explain, like, what does that mean?
Okay, well, in my case, it was I had to document more than 4,000 hours of community service, of
Wow.
volunteerism, in order to qualify for the award and the doctorate. And so it's really just people that are doing all kinds of community related service. And my background is software, and I was at IBM for 10 years and in software companies and international technology. So, but I retired and focus on this work. And so, like I said, I've been doing it for 20 years with the Compassionate Friends and 10 years with A Butterfly's Journey, my current active nonprofit. And I've there's three main things we offer. There's a free online resource center. I have an advanced certification in grief recovery method, which is the only methodology that's evidence-based in the world. It's been used 40 years on 6 continents. And then I do these Faces of Resilience photo shoots, which we can talk about if you want to later. But
Yeah, I
I'm all
definitely
over the
will.
country, the Caribbean, London, Canada. Anyway.
Oh, that's so awesome. So yeah, with okay, so how awesome is that? And I really appreciate you for putting in all that work and volunteering and the IBM, that's really cool too. Your used to be day job, that's really awesome.
Yeah.
Now, okay, I hate to ask, like it's such a touchy subject, by the way, grief. So and loss and children losing a child. But if you don't mind me asking, when was your first experience? How old was your child that you lost first, and how old were you?
Yeah. Why don't I'll just kind of go through the summary.
Sure, of
If
course.
that's okay. Because my first loss was, I think I was married about 7 years, and we had our first child was a miscarriage.
Okay.
And the reason I count that is because people don't get very often to grieve their infant losses or their pre-birth losses. And so, but it's still a loss. I mean, as soon as you're expecting, your mind is already connecting to this person. So I just said my first one was, and then I had 2 healthy boys, Brent and Brad. And when they were 6 and 4, my third son, Robbie, was full-term stillborn. So I did get to hold him, and, we did have a funeral for him and everything. But the hardest part was having to come home and tell the boys that their little brother wasn't coming home. And then fast forward, they grew up. My older son, Brent, chose to go off to military high school in New York. I live in Massachusetts. And then he got an Army ROTC scholarship out to Arizona State University. And he was out there, and he had just turned 21. He had already passed. He wanted to be a pilot. He had already passed his written aviation test and was about to pass all his physical stuff and go through boot camp and get commissioned as an Army officer when he got on a friend's motorcycle and lost control of it and died at 23 weeks after he turned 21. And then a year after that, my 30-year marriage fell apart. So it just totally ripped our lives apart. And my remaining son, Brad, was 19 at the time, but it was very tough on all of us. And he is now a successful chef. He went to Johnson & Wales. He's a chef and owns his own restaurant called Bob Lobster in Newbury, Mass.
Oh, wow.
So, but anyway, yeah.
I'm sorry for your losses. I have similar. I actually had a miscarriage, and then I had a stillborn, and it was a boy, and I was alone. It was a really rough, it's very traumatic story. Yeah. I had to get 2 units of blood. I was bleeding out. I could have died. And so they didn't let me hold him for a long time. And I finally asked to hold him. They just left him in the corner of the room. It was horrible. And I was young, so I already had 2 kids, but had my first one at 18 and my second one at 20. And so I think I was like 22 at this time. And it was totally, it changed me. Yeah, it changed me a lot. My personality, and everybody's like, what's wrong with you? And people thought I was still pregnant, and they were asking me like, yeah. And the boys were so little that they really didn't realize what was going on, thank goodness. But I told them when they got older. But I understand that. But I'm so sorry about, you said Brett was the one that
Brent is my 21-year-old that died, and then Robbie. And then, of course, the miscarriage. I didn't have a gender on that.
Oh, but
And-
go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just, to finish kind of that lost story, after my marriage fell apart a couple of years later, I did meet a wonderful guy and I got married again, Jim. And we were married 11 and a half years, and he had a widowmaker heart attack on his way to work, and he died.
Oh,
Became a widow in addition to a bereaved mom. And then I fell in a gym working out. They hadn't put a sign out and washed the floors, and I lost the sight in my right eye from the fall. Yes. And then my eye. So yeah, so I'm
Barbara.
well acquainted with this stuff. I think my parents passed when I was 32 and 47. So yeah,
well,
practiced at it. But again, luckily I was able to turn it around and do something.
so that's so sad. When that is so dangerous. Number one, I'm a nurse. I don't think you know that about me. I'm a nurse and widowmaker. Whoa, that's bad.
Yeah.
If you don't know what that is, that means like blockage, like that's like the worst blockages you can have.
Yeah.
And so it's almost always fatal, but it's not always. I've heard of people, I've taken care of people.
1% is not fatal if they happen to be in the hospital at the time.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I had gone through our normal hospital, because he had all of a sudden was kind of anxious and chronically fatigued, but kind of suddenly.
Yeah.
We went through 18 months of tests around that, and 3 months at a different hospital, a Boston hospital, and nobody found it. And then we had just changed PCPs, and they called me Friday afternoon and said, "Oh my God, because his new PCP asked his endocrinologist, who he had been with for 3 years, to do a particular thyroid test." And they called Friday afternoon and said, "He's got to get in here. He's got a blockage. We got to do surgery right away." I said, "Yeah, thanks. He died this morning."
Oh.
So if they had done that, if she had done that test during the time that she was going to him, or if if they had called me a day earlier, he would be alive.
Wow. Jeez.
Yeah.
So, oh my. Okay. It's a lot. So trying to structure,
Tell me about it.
and I'm sorry that you went
Okay.
through all this. And sometimes the tragedy that we go through really sparks us, and then now you're helping so many people. Not that I ever wish loss on anyone, because I absolutely don't. And I'll try not to tear up, because that's a lot. No, but I'm very sorry, but
thank you. I'm good. It's just it teaches you some very important things, grief. When you have those kind of traumatic losses, it teaches you what's important and what's not. And I don't put up with nonsense or BS or negativity or whatever. I just, none of that anymore, because it's so clear to me what's important and what's not.
Yeah, well, that's a good point. You value stuff more, and you see the importance in things and the non-importance, like drama and negativity. You don't want that. And right. You're like, I have enough. So with the eye thing, sorry, I'm a nurse. So, when you fell, did you hit your eye or your head, or what happened?
Yeah, I was actually training to be in a triathlon with my niece. And my husband and I belonged to a gym. We went to this is my second husband and I went to the gym. He did his workout. I did my swim, because I was in the swim part of it. And then I said, okay, I met him in the lobby and said, hold on a second, I'm just going to make a quick bio break. And I walked fast, but I was dry. Had sneakers on. And I walked into the ladies' room and went and hit that floor that they were washing the floor too early, way too much water. I think a new person. Okay. I went up in the air and came down with all my weight on my head on ceramic tile. And I saw stars, literally. And then I could feel the water soaking into my clothes. I reported it to them. And a few weeks later, I didn't get any of the typical symptoms for a detached retina, like flashes or anything.
Yeah.
But I needed some more light and magnification, but I thought that was just because I was swimming in chlorine every day, training for the triathlon swim. So after it, so that was April, and then in July after it, I tried to make an appointment for my optometrist, and they made some admin errors, didn't get me in until December. So now I'm 8 months later after the
My
fall,
goodness.
and they saw immediately that my retina had detached and it was crushed at the back of my eye. They put me right into mass eye and ear, did 3 surgeries, put a gas bubble behind my eye, had to be face down for 10 days. But I lost my sight. And then 10 years later, the pressure reduced and I had to have the eye enucleated. So I have a prosthetic.
Wow. So again,
that was a loss. That was literally a loss of sight. It was very separate for me from the loss of the body part.
wow. Mama Mia. I have recovered people that have had that. Let me just tell you, it is no joke. The gas bubble thing. You cannot go on, you can't go an incline. You can't do this. You can't do that. Like you said, you had to lay flat. Like when I had to give those instructions, I was like, wow, this is a challenge, because that would be a challenge for me. But
I borrowed a what do they call it? A massage table and a massage chair from 2 friends. And I literally went between those 2 things for 10 days.
wow.
And if I had to get up and do anything, I had to keep my head parallel to the floor. And it was so painful because, of course, the cornea is the most, concentrated nerve cells in the body, that I had to go in and they had to put a needle in my eye to take some pressure out of it because it was so awful. Worse than childbirth.
Wow. Okay. So really quick, and then we're going to start talking about some awesome, helpful, positive things. Okay. So, but your second husband was still there. He was helping you and everything, right? So when, is that right?
I don't think, did I know him
With
yet?
the eye?
Well, he was later on, and I'm trying to think. Yes, he was. Yeah, he was. He actually
Okay.
set up a twin bed for me with a kind of a chair and pillow in front of it as an alternative thing in terms
Aw.
of sleeping. And yeah, no, he was a sweetheart. He was 6'9" and as nice as he was tall.
6'9". Oh, okay. Wow. Aw. So when you lost you said he was almost 21, correct? Like 3 weeks before.
My older son, Brent,
Yeah.
was 3 weeks after his 21st birthday.
After. Okay. So when you lost your 21-year-old, I'm sorry, tragically, you said on the motorcycle, and you said your marriage fell apart. I just want to touch on that really quick, because if you're grieving right now and you're listening and watching this, that happens sometimes, but that doesn't mean that you're a failure. I don't want you to feel like it's your fault or anything like that. And so do you mind, Barbara, like touching a little bit on that, just because people go through this?
We were very different people and we grieved very differently, and men and women grieve differently in general.
Absolutely.
But in addition to that, I'm an extrovert and I wanted to reach out and find, things to help. And he was an introvert and kind of went internal, and we just went like this. We just, and it changed our lives, both of our lives, dramatically. So, we just couldn't manage it anymore together. And that 1-2 punch, he made the choice to leave. And the 1-2 punch of, so when my 21-year-old died, he was getting engaged, and his almost fiance was like, had twins on both sides of her family, and he was kid crazy. So I felt the loss of grandchildren immediately when my older son died. And the combination of that and my 30-year marriage falling apart, and my remaining son, Brad, started college that next fall. Yeah, because he died the end of May, basically, was his accident. And in September, Brad went off to college, and he flunked out of college because of his grief that year. Now he got back in and finished. He's a Johnson & Wales chef. But the combination of all of those things, I actually attempted suicide.
Wow.
But I did it with and it wasn't big. It was like a trigger event that day, right? I was starting to reach out to help some other people, and there was a meeting I was going to, and they canceled it. They forgot to tell me, and I needed to be with people around that day that got it. Right. And it was just too much. It was the straw that broke the camel's back. So I pulled back into my garage, and I realized it's like somebody hit me with a 2x4, your marriage is gone. You know, I'm thinking retirement and grandchildren, right? Now your older son is gone, your younger son is struggling, your marriage is gone. How am I going to buy him out of this house because I didn't want to leave? You know, all these different things all at once. And so I just closed the garage door and left the car running. But what that did is it gave me time to think. And I realized I could not do that to my remaining son. So that saved me. And I called my sister. Thank God she answered the phone, and I got the heck out of there. And I went and spent some time with her. And yeah, so you just never know. I mean, I think a lot of these decisions sometimes, unfortunately, are just a trigger event that is just the straw that breaks the camel's back, as the saying goes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know it, and my audience knows this, but if you're watching today and you know Dr. Barbara and you don't know me, my story and part of my journey is that my brother committed suicide, but I actually was on the phone when it happened because my mother called me and wanted me to calm him down. So that is my part of my journey, other than losing kids and different things. But
sibling loss.
Yeah, it means a lot to me. And I love that you said that, because we'll talk about like how successful and all the things that you're doing but you're helping so many people. But if you were not around and you actually did commit suicide, look at all the lives that would be impacted and that you wouldn't be able to touch. Right. So I love when I talk to people that say, I thought about it, I attempted it, this and this and that, and it didn't work for a reason. Not that my brother's supposed to be gone. I'm not saying that at all, but you have a purpose, and I'm so glad that you're here, and I'm so happy that we're talking. And again, I'm extremely sorry for your losses, and you're smiling, and I love that, because that's why, like, so I named my stuff. This show's called Authentic Points of View, but I started my life coaching, and I also started my other podcast, and it's called Turning Trauma to Triumph, but it's also about grief. But I love that, because like, triumph doesn't mean you figured it all out and you're like, everything's fixed, I'm fine forever. No, but it's
a long process. It takes a long time. You have to work hard at it. You have to make a choice to heal.
Yes.
And then you have to really work at it. And for me, that when I attempted suicide that day, it became a turning point for me, because it was at that point that I realized I have to do something. I have to take action. And so that's when I reached out and decided to start the local support group for families that have lost a child, grandchild, or sibling. And within the same week, 1 year after my son died, we had our first meeting.
Wow. Aw.
And that was the beginning of 20 years. I just turned it over last month, or June, to a couple of other bereaved parents who have been active in it for several years with me.
Wow. Yeah. Well, that's amazing. I love that and that's really soon, actually, after that you were able to, heal enough to be able to take that step forward, because that's really hard. And I'm not gonna lie, my brother passed away 13 years ago, and I didn't get to the point of, I kind of just didn't talk about it or didn't think about it for a long time. So the last couple of years is when it started turning around for me. And I was like, I have to start helping other people. Like, I don't have a choice. Like, I have to. But what you said about your son, that almost like he messed up that semester or didn't go that semester or whatever, I almost didn't become a nurse. I was going to quit school. Yeah. And when he passed was in July. And I found out like right after that I got accepted into the program in September. And it was really hard to get accepted on your first try. And I was like, I don't care, I'm done. And I had 2 boys, and I was a single mom. And so I thought, like, I can't quit for them. Like, I'm doing this. I want to become a nurse and get a career and help people. I loved helping people. And I want to do this for them. I want to show them that it's possible. Like, I had a kid at 18, my first one. I lived in a homeless shelter when I was pregnant with my second one. Like, anything is possible. And so, like you said, you didn't quit for your son. And then that was the same kind of thing with me. And plus my brother has a daughter and she's she just turned. No, wait, look, I don't even know what month it is. That's sad. Next month she turns. Look, it was just my birthday and I don't even know what month it is. Wow. It's still August, everybody. True. But she turns 17 in September. And so, but anyway, so when you started that, which one was your first? Was it the Compassionate?
Yeah,
Friends
the Compassionate Friends of Greater Newburyport, Mass. And I started that in 2003. My older son died in 2002. And I just turned that over in 2023.
Wow.
To another couple who have been great helping me, Mel and Heidi. And so they really wanted to take it over and put their spin on it. And I thought, okay, 20 years is probably good enough for that, because I also started A Butterfly's Journey in 2013. So and I released my first book, the memoir, also called A Butterfly's Journey, in 2013. And then in 2015, I got the 501c3 on A Butterfly's Journey.
Awesome.
And put the three kind of main legs in place for what we do. So I thought, okay, so let me focus a little more on that.
That's amazing. So I love the names of everything. It's really awesome. And this might be a very silly question, but why did you name A Butterfly's Journey? Why is it called that name?
Okay. I was, for whatever reason, pretty obsessed with butterflies after my older son died. And the butterfly is an international symbol of transition. So I think of that as a transition from his transition from a physical to a spiritual life, and my transition to a life with him versus without him. And if you'll notice, most grief organizations have a butterfly somewhere in their logos or in their something around them. Always, again, because of when you think about it, what creature goes through more of a transition than a butterfly when it goes from a caterpillar to a pupa to a beautiful butterfly? So that's part of it. And then I was actually, I got the name. I had a similar name in mind, but the name that I actually got it from a medium.
Wow.
And she said, you should name it A Butterfly's Journey. And so I kind of took it as maybe a sign from maybe as recommendation from my son.
Yeah.
And it's a journey. It's my journey, throughout all of this, but it's everybody's journey, right? Everybody has to make a journey when they go through this stuff. And the reason, and we got the resource center and the grief recovery method stuff, because it's action-based and it's only like a 7-week class. It's not endless, and it's much more constructive. But the Faces of Resilience photo shoots that I do, that's all about open expression around grief, loss, and love, because we don't talk about our grief enough.
Right.
So that's why I love doing these podcasts, because it opens things up for people, because people run from them. And I would say, in the 20 years of having a chapter where I dealt with other bereaved parents all the time, and some bereaved siblings and grandparents as well, they almost all of them, by the way, most of them have considered or thought about suicide.
Wow.
And most of them they lost people in their lives, or people run from them. They would catch them running away from them in supermarkets, running around corners and things, because they didn't want to talk about it.
Wow.
And what we need as grievers is somebody to just listen, not to run. Right. Absolutely. You don't need to fix anything. We don't want you to fix anything. we just need you to, maybe tell a story about our loved one, or mention his or her name. Yeah. And don't run.
Right.
Just be supportive. It's people don't know that, though, and they do. They run because they can't think about it in the context of their own lives.
Right.
And they're afraid they're going to hurt you too. They're afraid they're going to bring it up, not realizing it's right there for a long time.
Yeah.
By the way, I was not healed in a year. I was crying as much as anybody in those support groups. Can I mention one other thing that I think was really significant turning point for me?
Absolutely.
And I don't know that I'm totally healed, but I mean, after about 3 years, something made me realize that my son's life was a gift, not just a loss. Wow. And if I had to make the decision, do I have to do it again, to either go through all that pain again, or to never have known him, what would I do? I'd do it again in a heartbeat. That was a big turning point for me when I realized that. And once I also believed, it took me a little while, and somebody talking me into going to a medium. I worked for IBM in a high pressure job. I wasn't thinking about, I didn't know what the word spirituality meant.
Yeah.
I got away from religion and I just didn't. So that was an eye opener for me. And once I figured out that he's okay, look, I can be okay. He's my child. So I'm programmed to protect him. And if I
Right.
can't protect him anymore, that was the worst part. It was like, I felt gutted like a fish. So when I finally became comfortable that his spirit continued, and they all do, by the way, I've proven it to myself. I've got signs, the whole bit. But once I was comfortable that he was okay, I could start to heal. And that's when I realized, you know what? You got to think about him as a gift, not just a loss, because you had him for 21 years, you know?
Yeah.
So.
I love that. I work with my clients like the same way, and I had to do that too. I couldn't think of the way that my brother actually left the earth here, because that was making me miserable and scared, and I was having night terrors and all this stuff. But I had to think of like positive things and what impact he left on the world and how funny he was and all that stuff. And that's what I work with people, is that think about what they brought to your life, or like how they touched you, or what they taught you, or whatever the case may be. And those things will bring you joy, and sometimes a tear, but not like despair and darkness and the negativity and so if we think about the last few minutes of, unfortunately, my brother's was like maybe like an hour and a half, 2 hours, the last couple hours of his life, as opposed to he was 26. So why would I think of 2 hours as opposed to 26 years, right? And so that's hard to do, because we're in shock, we're in denial, we're angry, we're all these things, we're bargaining, we're doing all these things, and we're guilty. I was very guilty. But that doesn't change the fact that they're not here, unfortunately. So why make us miserable and be just dwelling in that? So I love that you said
they don't want us to be
they
miserable.
don't.
They want
They
us to heal
don't.
and be happy
Right.
again, or, you know, yeah.
Yeah,
And think
I agree.
lovingly. I actually had a medium tell me that it's like a tether when we're really miserable, and we're really, it's like a constraint on them. It's like a tether, because they're worrying about us and they're too
Aw.
tied to us. So who knows? We can't
Wow.
prove any of it, right?
So, but I thank you for sharing all these facts and like your real life, and being vulnerable and being so resilient, to where, you know, and that's a good point. Just because you made the decision to move forward and do something that helps people, you were honest and said, well, I was still crying, but the fact that you were going through it with other people that were in the same situation as you does help. And so, like me being a coach, when I started getting certified to be a coach, it helped me so much. I was like, oh my gosh, like, wow, you know, and then it felt like some weight was kind of lifted off. And I actually did a podcast, and I was young when I lost the babies, but this lady, I was just talking and telling my story. And she was like, whoa, did you ever like do something? And I'm like, no. Did you ever like, what did you do to, I'm like, I just kept going. So I never even faced the fact of it. I never really even talked about that. I talk about my brother's situation a lot now. I want to help people, you know, especially if your family, you lost somebody from suicide and all that stuff. But when I lost the baby, that I was 25 weeks and I held him finally and all that stuff, that changed my life. But I just kind of just pushed that, because I had 2 other kids. I just pushed it on the back burner. And sometimes talking about it is what really helps us realize, oh, wow, you know, like this has really changed me. I need to work on healing. So what exactly is the advanced grief recovery method, as much as you can explain it?
Yeah, it's a methodology that was written by John James years ago. He's passed away now, but he was a bereaved dad. and he wrote it. And then Russell Friedman came in and helped him as a business partner, and he had lost his wife or significant other. And anyway, so it's been around 40 years and it's grown. And a few years ago, they actually went through the effort to get it evidence-based, which means it's been proven to be effective. And it's been used 40 years on 6 continents. So, but the thing I love about, so when I decided to do a butterfly's journey and do something, I wanted to figure out, what I wanted to offer. I looked at different methodologies, and I chose this one because not only was it succinct, right? It's short, it's got tools, it's got, homework. I can do it because I've got the advanced certification, so I can do it anywhere in the world, with somebody that speaks English, just do it over Zoom like this, or in person. But it's got tools and it's got action-based things. So it's complementary to support groups or to therapy, but it doesn't replace them, but it helps you deal with the grief so that those things work better. And
Wow.
it actually allows you, like, you go through and do a loss history graph, and then you pick one relationship and you go really deep into the pluses and minuses of that and come up with all the undelivered communications. See, one of the things that makes you hold on to the grief is that you didn't get to say what you wanted to say or communicate to the person.
Right.
And that could be negative or positive, right? You could be apologies, forgivenesses, other emotional statements, and it just walks you through this process. It's very powerful. And it's been used in a lot of different situations, and it's so I do that. And I think I got certified in 2015 and then got an advanced certification in 2020 to do that.
Wow, that's awesome. And that's, do your clients, or how, I don't know if you call them clients, or do they give you feedback of how they implement it and how it's helped them? And
Yes, yeah. It's actually gotten some really, and I did that on myself at first, right?
Yeah.
So I did it on myself, and I've done it with myself with different situations in my life as well. So my marriage that fell apart, as well as my losses, things like that. And yeah, no, I've gotten really, I just had somebody stop me. I ran into them in a restaurant the other day, and they were telling me what a difference it made in their life. And they had some really tough struggles growing up and things like that.
Aw.
So additional losses. So that's really, that's really rewarding. It's on my website is a butterfliesjourney.org, and that's FLYS, possessive, not plural. So, how you spell it. And so there's information about that there. And I also I'm certified also to teach a pet loss class.
Oh, wow.
And a class for adults, but helping children grieve. So there's 3 different classes tied to that grief recovery method. There's the regular one I think they basically talk about covering 43 kinds of loss, because it's not just death,
Right.
Illness, moves, financial loss, this on and on and on. So it really helps in a lot of situations, right?
Wow.
And then of course my passion is those Faces of Resilience photos.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that. Are you a photographer, or you have a photographer that does them? I used
Both.
to be a photographer. Yeah, I
Oh,
used
really?
to be. Yes. I actually, my light that I'm using is my photography light. This is my backdrop from my
Okay.
studio. I
Oh,
closed
that's
my
funny.
studio. Yeah. So we have
I
some
was
stuff in common.
Yes, right. Yeah. No, and I haven't really done professional photography outside of the nonprofit. And my daughter-in-law, one of my daughter-in-laws, was my first photographer, because she was a photographer. And then she was unable to go to some of the events with me, because I like I said, I've done them all over the US, Canada, Caribbean, London. And so I reached out to a friend of mine who was a bereaved mother, who was a photographer. And so she now is my staff photographer for Butterfly
Awesome.
Journey, Patty Ray Miliotis. And so we go together, and sometimes a third person will help us, because we actually set up we have a black backdrop and lights, professional lights, and camera and the whole bit. And then we'll have people sign a media release so that I can put it in my photo gallery, or I actually have a Faces of Resilience photo book, and I want to do a series of those, from different points of view, like relationship or cause of death or whichever. So we're moms on a mission, basically. And so we travel together and do this stuff. Our next one is in Massachusetts in October for an organization called SAD-OD, which is supporting people who have lost people to overdose. And I've done walks on the Capitol. I've done walks to remember. I've done the national conferences for Compassionate Friends, for bereaved parents of the USA, for associations, death and education consulting, for overcoming addiction vigils, all kinds of stuff. And people, because it's visceral, so what they do is we encourage them to come up with a phrase that's meaningful to them. And we, bring a book or banner, different things to give them ideas. And once they come up with the phrase they want, I write it on their skin with washable magic marker. And so it washes right off, but it's visceral, right? You're feeling it, you're seeing it. And these are people often, especially with bereaved parents, that haven't really gotten to talk that much about their grief because of people don't want to talk about it,
Right.
So it allows them to express it. And then we take photos, as many as they want, and then we'll send it to them, all professionally edited, so that it's a catalyst for them to talk about their grief when they get home. And it's been very powerful. And like I said, I've got a photo book called Faces of Resilience. And often at these events, I teach a resilience workshop as well.
Wow.
That I co-wrote with Alan Peterson, a good friend of mine who was the executive director of the Compassionate Friends USA for 4 years. And that's the largest grief organization in the world. So yeah, wow. It's my passion though. I want to do more of the photos, and I think I have 12 languages so far. When people, wow. I encourage them to tell me in their, just give me an English translation, because again, it's visceral.
Oh, that is amazing. So how does somebody become a part of this project? Like what do they do to reach out?
They would normally, it would be the people that are at the events that I'm attending. Okay, but somebody could actually request that I do an event that they're holding. So sometimes like there's a Compassionate Friends chapter in another part of the country, and they will say, please come down and do a photo shoot, or we're doing a statewide multiple chapters or something. You know what I mean? It probably makes sense, to have some, I don't know, 50 or 100 people or something there to make it worth all the setup and, ideally to help with some expense and that kind of thing. But wow, it's definitely my passion. And some of the things these people come with, like a friend of mine, she lost her son to overdose, and she wrote "No blame, no shame, just love" on her arms, and things like that. It's just like, oh my God, and we take it individuals, couples, groups, even pets. I've got this beautiful one it was a Dalmatian, and she came in, and I took the picture of her and her husband. They had lost their daughter, April. And then I said, can I take you with the dog? And we did. And I said, can I take just the dog? And they put her daughter's picture on his collar. Oh, gorgeous picture this is of this Dalmatian. Yeah, it's just these things. Yeah, I love it. You can tell I'm really passionate about it.
Oh, I would be too. I think that's amazing. I love that idea. So speaking of overdose, tomorrow is, I think it's International Overdose Awareness Day. Okay. I think, yeah. So on August 31st, and my niece, I always get emotional when I talk about this. She lost her dad to suicide when she was 3.5. And then at 6.5, she lost her mom to an accidental overdose.
Oh my God.
And that poor thing, now she's going to be 17 soon, and she is so amazing. She does this like foundation that this other school did, but it's for foster kids, and she's like helping, and she's graduating a year early. I'm so proud of her. But there's like a stigma with both of them, and it's sad when I'm talking about suicide and I'm talking about overdose. And it breaks my heart, because people are people, and I love the person. And again, like we said, don't think about those things or the way that they passed away or whatever, because it's harder to heal that way. And that's not how that they would want you to think of them, of course, or think about it in this way. if you accidentally overdose, or even if you were doing drugs on purpose and you overdose and you weren't here anymore, would you want people to know you as just that? No, because
Yeah.
that's not who you are. You're
Oh,
funny,
and
you're
and
smart,
addiction
go
is
ahead. What?
an illness anyway, right? I mean, I can't give up ice cream. I can't imagine what it would be like.
Right.
And a lot of the it used to be that about 10% of my chapter folks were their children had passed because of suicide or overdose. Now it's well over 50%.
Wow.
It's epidemic. And a lot of them they had an injury and they were put on some
Right.
sort of opioid,
Yes.
and then they couldn't break from it, and they
Right.
ended up with heroin or whatever, and then or get clean for 6 months, and then a friend would give them a
That's
fix,
exactly what happened.
and
Yeah.
it was and then they overdosed because they couldn't tolerate that anymore, and that happens a lot. But see, that's why the Faces of Resilience, and when I ask for a relationship and cause of death, because I actually tag that in the gallery so people can see other people, not feel so alone, that have lost in the same way. And I want to do books like that. I want to do a book with really just all subjects that have lost to overdose, or subjects that have lost to suicide, or medical, or whatever, or different things like that, children, spouses, whatever.
That's amazing. So I think that you are so awesome, and I'm so grateful that you came and talked to us, and just the way, those are amazing things. I didn't even know that these groups existed. I didn't even know, like, I think that's awesome. I'm definitely going to check out all your stuff and go to your website as well, because this is something I'm passionate about as well. I am in an Atlanta area, but still, but that's cool. You said there's chapters everywhere. So
it's like 600 chapters of the Compassionate Friends. It's a peer support. It's all volunteer.
wow.
And then they do a national conference every year in a different city. Next
Awesome.
year it is in New Orleans, and I want to say it's in early to mid-July. I can't remember the date off the top of my head. It might be the 12th to the 14th, but it's amazing. And then everybody, most of the people there have been through some sort of all different types of loss, but all for if they lost a child, a grandchild, or a sibling, for instance. But there's widows. There's another friend, Herb Noel, runs the Widower Support Network. So when they've lost a wife, or I have other friends like Joanne Fink, who runs a widow support, I kind of go across the different types, but these things are all over the place. Yeah, which is nice. And it's a lot easier to find them online than it used to be.
Yeah, that's awesome. And if you are grieving right now, and unfortunately that's something we all do, because we all have that in common, that we're going to grieve sometime in our life. But if you are grieving right now and you are isolating yourself, and maybe people are just not talking to you, please reach out to someone and just say, hey, please just listen to me. I because sometimes being alone can be bad and sometimes it could be good. Sometimes it makes you think, and like you said, it could
isolation is tough. Isolation is in general not good. I'm not that you can't, of course you want to spend some time alone, but if you get too isolated. So I just thought of another, probably the largest resource center online in the world is opentohope.com.
Okay.
And it was founded by Heidi and Gloria Horsley, a mother-daughter therapist team. They're amazing. They're friends. They're lovely. But they have not only podcasts and articles, and they have so many resources. And so, like I said, I've got a resource center on A Butterfly's Journey as well, but the largest one, and they're international, and they typically do an international online event every year as well. They're connected in all different kinds of grief.
Wow. Well, thank you so much. That's amazing. I really appreciate you giving us all this information. And just Google is an amazing thing. So if you don't know who to reach out to or what to do, Google groups that, or Facebook or whatever, and then find groups in your area if you want to physically go, or you can literally find groups that do virtual meetings and all these things, and you have way more options there, of course. So reach out, figure out, sometimes being around people that are in the same situation, it's very helpful because again, you feel like, oh, I'm not alone. I'm not
Yeah.
alone. I'm not the only one going through this, and there's hope. And so hope is important because sometimes you lose sense of that.
Right.
And if you're in that dark place and you're isolated and you feel like there's no way out, then it's so hard. But if you have other people that say are going through the same thing, and maybe they're a year, longer than you, or they found out things that helped them or worked for them, they can give you some advice. They could just listen to you and be there for you, and you can feel love and just not feel like you're alone. And also I have a group sessions coming up as well. So I will be posting that, and it's going to be about grief. I haven't started my trauma one yet. I'm doing individual sessions for trauma, but for grief, the group sessions will hopefully start in November. So that's going to be virtual. So that's for anybody that can speak English, because unfortunately that's the only thing I really speak fluently. But so that's also an option. I'm just a life coach, I'm not a therapist or anything like that. But so Barbara, thank you so much. So you told us your website and a couple of the books, and I know it's on Amazon, or where can we find it?
It's A Butterfly's Journey, Healing Grief After the Loss of a Child is on Amazon, and Faces of Resilience is on Amazon, both of them.
That's so cool.
And in A Butterfly's Journey, because I wrote it 10 years after my older son died, just to tie into what you were just saying, I actually had the 3 top things that I thought helped the most looking back. And one of them was trust your gut about what you need, as opposed to listening to the advice of everybody else, but keep an open mind and try new things. So for instance, I had never tried energy healing. And again, I was in a high pressure corporate job. And when I tried it, I was surprised at how much it helped. And then I tried, a lot of different times. So that's first. Second is helping others helps you heal. And It doesn't have to be related to the death or what happened or the cause of death of your loved one. Something about reaching out and helping others is very, very healing. And then the third thing was, it's all about the love. And the love, again, is positive memories and remembering, focusing on all the love between you, because love never dies. Never dies. And
yes, I love that.
To prove it.
Yes, absolutely. And I love your butterfly earrings. I have to mention that.
People are always giving me butterfly stuff.
I love it
because I'm such a butterfly freak.
Yeah.
But, I like these.
I love that. So I love cardinals because my grandmother passed, but she loved cardinals. So my 10-year-old says, hey, there's grandma, when a cardinal.
Well, cardinals are one of the symbols that are recognized like butterflies.
Yeah. So that's my thing of, I'm not going to say I'm like totally obsessed, but I have like this wind chime with a cardinal and different things. But I do love them. And it reminds me of my grandma, and my grandma actually had a butterfly bush in her backyard. So sometimes when I see the yellow and the black, are they monarch butterflies or whatever?
The orange and black ones.
Yeah. They're so beautiful. But so what was I going to say off of what you just said? You talked about your books. Helping others could be literally volunteering and going and walking dogs. You can do anything like that. You can become a big brother, big sister. Like you said, it doesn't have to do with loss and stuff, just things that bring you joy and help other people.
And they appreciate you, and that's very healing.
Yes. Well,
journaling. Most people don't realize they're walking in nature. Yes. But journaling, I never kept a diary. And then my younger son gave me a refillable leather journal 6 months after his older brother died. Yeah. And I only started using it because he gave it to me. And I was amazed at how cathartic it was, because you can pour out the good, the bad, and the ugly, and nobody ever has to see it. In my case, 8 journals later, it fed into my book. But it can't just be, you know what I mean? It's very powerful.
Yes, I agree. And like you said, things that you can do to honor them. There's so many things that will help you heal as well. If you start a scholarship fund, maybe you started a nonprofit, write a book, starting that beautiful photo project. There's so many things, a recipe book, if it was your mom or somebody that liked to cook and had a lot of recipes. There's so many things that you can give their legacy meaning and like bring it, keep it living on and everything. And
I
so
have 18 tips, each about a minute and a half, that I've actually on my YouTube channel. I should start putting those out through something else, but
yeah.
lots
What's
of
your
different things.
YouTube channel?
A Butterfly's Journey.
Okay. Okay. Well, that's good. See, it's easy to find because everything is
Facebook, Instagram, but I'm most active on Facebook, but Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, whatever.
all right. Well, yay. So thank you so much, Dr. Barbara. This was really awesome and so helpful. And I feel a lot better too. Anytime I talk about this subject, I feel like a piece, like it just feels good. Thank you for giving so many pointers and things that helped you, because you never know until you try it. Like you said, you can scoff at something.
Yeah.
And it might be the one thing that changes everything for you. So
and don't listen to people when they tell you, oh yeah, aren't you over that yet? Please just ignore it, just because it's not everybody, everybody's individual. There's no timeline, there's no set method. You just have to, keep chipping away at it, and just don't worry about that stuff,
right. And you're never going to get over everything. Like, it's not like getting over, like you're jumping over a crack in the sidewalk. So it's like, like you said,
you'll always miss them, but you can heal. I mean, you can
heal. Absolutely. But they're always going to be there. So it's not like you're going to be like, the fact that I gained 50 pounds, get over it. But, but this is not the same thing. You're right. The healing journey is a process and a journey. And we're going to have times where we kind of have a sad day, but the whole goal is to not stay there, is to get past it and know and have the tools to like get past it. All right. So thank you so much. Thank you for watching and listening. Sorry.
So thank you for having me, for inviting me, and it's been a pleasure talking with you.
Thank you so much for coming on, especially last minute. I'm honest, and I really appreciate you.
I love spontaneous. It was fun.
Yeah, it is. It keeps.
And I think it got me out of that speeding ticket I almost got on my way home.
Oh my gosh! Did you tell them that you were on a show? And then
yeah, I did.
Sweet. Okay, good. I'm glad it worked.
I had 10 minutes until the show started. And I said, I was driving my friend's car that I'd never driven before.
Oh no.
So I didn't notice that I was speeding. And so when he stopped me, I told him, it's the first time I've driven the car and I've got a podcast in 10 minutes. And he was nice enough, that policeman, to just give me just not write me up.
That's so nice. I'm glad it went that way instead of the other way. Well, that's the tricky thing about lives though, because we would have been, I had to figure out something else. All right. Well, thank you so much again. And I'll definitely keep in touch. And if you can send me certain things that you mentioned, if you could just send it in a message. So when I post this onto my platform, and if you are listening, just listening, you can definitely watch the replay back, and it'll be on Facebook. So thank you so much for listening or watching, and have a great day. And I hope something you heard today helps change your point of view.